Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome to Nightlight, everybody. So glad you could be with us and share your time with us tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are in the world. I want to thank Ken Quiet Hawk for his amazing intro. He and his wife are native storytellers, and you can find them on the internet. All you have to do is Google either Ken Quiet Hawk or Native Storytellers, and you will learn some amazing stuff about the Native American traditions. It's definitely an adventure worth going on. And if you're listening to the show tonight in archive, please go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. That's how you let us know that you're listening. It helps us a lot to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So far, everything's worked. So let us know, please. My guest tonight is Tammy Billups, and she's amazing. This is a very special show because I happen to be an animal addict. She is a transformational soul healer and pioneer on the animal-human sacred soul partnership. She's a sought-after holistic healer, the creator of animal-human Tandem Healings, and a certified interface therapist. She's appeared on CNN's The Daily Share, Primetime Live ABC, and Oprah. Her book that we're going to be talking about tonight is Animal Soul Contracts, Sacred Agreements for Shared Evolution. It reveals the higher purpose and soul mission behind our relationships with our animal companions. She explores the spiritual contracts that are created when a human bonds with an animal and shows how we come into each other's lives for a reason. She provides real-life examples. She explains why animals choose at the soul level to have certain perceived negative experiences, such as physical or behavioral issues, to evolve their souls, clear karma, and help our souls evolve. She shows that human and animal souls orchestrate every experience and interaction that holds potential for transformation and healing, including the final transition. She demonstrates the inner dynamics of the animal-human relationship to help animal lovers understand their soul contracts with their pets. The inspirational real-life examples of animal-human tandem healings that she facilitated identify the soul contracts within each pairing that transform feelings of grief, loss, abandonment, betrayal, trauma, abuse, and anxiety into peace, love, and tranquility. She's an amazing lady. Her book is phenomenal, and you can get it on Amazon. And I will have it up on my website as well, and the link to Amazon will be there. And you can find her at www.tammybillups.com. So, without further ado, Tammy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, I've always known that my animals were people too, but I never even thought about what our contract, or that there might be a contract between the two of us. And I was fascinated when I read your book, because it explained so much about how my animals came into my life, and there always seemed to be a purpose, and I just felt I was really, really lucky. But I didn't realize that there was most probably a contract at some point written so that we would all come together at different specific times to facilitate healings and growth in each other.
Yeah, and there can be lots of contracts you have with each animal. It's amazing.
It really is, because, I have loved every animal I've ever had. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And it isn't that I loved some more than others, but I had more of a connection with some than I did with others. So would that indicate that there was more of a contract with the other ones? Or, I don't think you just randomly come into contact with each other. I think there's a reason, but sometimes there are more than one reasons. Is that basically how it goes?
Yeah, and when you say that you're closer to one more than another, which everybody feels that way, where you feel like you have a stronger bond with one animal, and you still have these, of course, these beautiful bonds with others, but there's some that really stand out, and those are usually because you have been together many, many times before. So there's a long-standing soul relationship. And that's why it feels so familiar and so comfortable and so deep.
Yeah, my husband, when he moved in, had a cat with him who he named Skitsy, because she was crazy, or appeared to be. And she was feral, and he said, "You'll never see her." And I said, "Oh, don't be silly." And it took 2 years, but I got her to the point where she would come onto my lap, and she would, she really, it was sort of like she was afraid to love or to experience it. And she got to a point where, she really did crave the affection and the warmth that came from the personal touch. And I always knew that there was, something very special there. It just, all I could think of was, I know that this cat really wants to be loved. So, I'll take her on her terms. I'm not going to drag her, but I'll sit there and wait for her to come to me. And she did. So
what a beautiful gift you gave her by accepting her pace and her timing to release the fear that she had. That's a beautiful gift.
Well, you can't. I have found you can't make a cat cuddly. They are either going to be it or not. And if you try, you're going to end up with scratches. So you have to respect their space. So how did you? Dogs are different, but cats definitely have to be respected. How did you come to understanding that you had this gift? This is definitely a special gift that you've got.
Oh, well, thank you. This gift, I'm doing quotation marks around it, because this happened to me at the turn of the century. Through my mother's passing, I had a spiritual awakening, and because of that, all of a sudden, my very first pet passed weeks after my mother, and I was more traumatized. You know how it is with those that we live with every day, and she was my first unconditional love. And I can remember back then my level of consciousness was, oh my gosh, there's no one to greet her on the other side, because my mother was having conversations with all of these people that had passed, and she would tell me about them, which I just thought, this is cool. And it made me feel good to know that she was being greeted, and I didn't really have that knowledge before, or that tangible evidence like which she gifted me with. And so when Kahlua passed, I can remember just going, God, let her come back and live with me. And I was crying and crying because my mother did not like cats. So I thought, there's no one to greet her. There's nobody that I know that's passed other than Mom. And that evening, all of a sudden, I had this gift, and I could see her, and she was going about doing her normal routine, and it really grew from there over the next month. And it completely changed my life. All of my, all of my memories from my childhood were unlocked at the same time, which made it not a really good year. And then my other 2 animals passed within the next few months. All of them, of course, had signed up and had contracts to get me to that point of my awakening and to start this new path in life and no more. So while it was an extraordinary year, it was also, of course, quite difficult in many ways. But that was when my gift, came. And I couldn't turn it off once it came, and all of a sudden I was seeing into 14 different dimensions, and it was very scary, at the time, because I never knew anyone that had that, and it wasn't all pretty stuff that I was seeing because I had a lot of fear around it, So that was really when it came to be, and it didn't take long, over the next year after that. I started in a beautiful 4-year program to learn what to do with these gifts so that I can help all beings heal. I started initially just for people and then added in the animals.
Well, it's just, it's funny. I had 2 animals that passed within 6 months of my mother passing, and my mother had been really, really ill for a very long time. So when she passed, I was so relieved that she was finally out of pain that I felt a sense of peace. But when my 2 animals went, I could not be consoled. And I finally said at one point, I'm so embarrassed. I can't stop crying about my cat and my dog. And my mother died, and I was fine. But these 2, I just, it was terrible. I would burst into tears at a moment's notice almost. They stopped. They literally told me I couldn't open my mail at the post office anymore because everybody was sending me the Rainbow Bridge, and every time I read it, I would burst into tears. And then people would say, why? And I'd tell them, and they'd cry. So the post office won't let me open my mail there anymore. For fear another animal is going to go, and I'll have everybody sobbing. But there is such a connection we have with our pets because they give you unconditional love.
Yes, it's a safe love. We don't have the same history with them as we do a lot of the people that we call into our lives and that we've chosen to, live our lives with. So to me, it's, when the more they hole up inside your heart, and especially they're around you every day, all the time, you're going to miss them more, and it's going to be very tangible, a hole in your heart when they leave, which is much different than those that you aren't with every day. So I think that's fairly common for us animal lovers.
Oh, yeah. Now, you've worked with cats and dogs and horses. What other animals have you worked with?
Well, let me think here. There's been a couple of snakes. There's been ferrets, bunnies, definitely birds, macaws, yeah, and a tiger at a rescue center. I'm trying to think. What else? It's been, I don't know. It's been 20 years. My memory's not so good, but I think that's mainly the ones other than the horses, cats, and dogs.
Yeah, I mean those are the ones I would think of immediately. But an animal is an animal. Now another question that I've wondered about. Can you make connection with any living creature?
With their permission. I always ask permission, but there's certainly the capability is there for it, absolutely.
Because I have some ants I'd love you to talk to.
Well, that's funny. Are some ants getting in your house?
Yes, they are. They weren't invited.
That's funny. Well,
I've done I've
tried talking to them.
I've tried meditating to them. I've tried talking to them. I've tried saying, if you don't stop, I'm going to have to end your lives. So find some way. Stay in the rafters. Don't come into the house itself. Just let's stay to our own places here. They don't seem to understand. I must not talk ant well. So
I've had an ant thing one time, and I'll just be honest. I got to the point where I had to tell them, I'm like, okay, so here's your 24-hour notice.
Yeah.
And I went around the house and I did a little sage, and I'm like, okay, guys, I need you to hear me loud and clear. The guy's coming tomorrow. This is make your exit immediately because we've tried everything else.
Well, I heard that you could put red pepper down, and that would keep them away. And I reached for the red pepper without my glasses on, and couldn't understand when the next day we were overrun, and I had put cinnamon down instead of red pepper.
Oh, no. Oh, bless your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of, I took a look at them and I said, that may be your last meal. But so with pets, with cats, with dogs, you say that there are many different kinds of contracts that we have with them. You want to kind of give us an understanding of what, I think there were 6, did you say?
There are 7, and I mean a soul contract. Just to kind of give you the overview, it's really an agreement between 2 beings to expand their growth in this lifetime. So our souls, is what I have found through doing thousands of sessions over the past 20 years, is that our souls agree upon lessons and growth to work on together for mutual healing and development. So we actually decide before we incarnate to team up with certain beings on certain lessons and growth, and I call those soul contracts. So yes, they're what I've documented, and it doesn't mean that there can't be more, but what I have found through my work, which is much more on the psycho-spiritual side, since that's just the area that fascinates me the most, and because that's what I'm working on with my clients mainly, is their emotional wounds or unresolved emotional wounds, traumas, physical issues, and of course the first 2 are behind usually the physical issues. But there are, the 7 different levels that I discovered are, the physical agreements, which is when kind of we're holding each other's physical ailments for each other. There's the emotional wound agreements. I'm able to see these defense patterns around the 5 different core emotional wounds that we have, which are betrayal, abandonment, invasiveness, trauma, terror actually, and denial, detachment from your true self. So those we will mirror a lot, and I see that happen frequently within a person in their animal relationship. And then there's projection agreements, there are karma agreements, there are unconscious mirroring agreements, and then of course the symbolism on how they're going to act out in symbolism certain messages for you. And then, of course, so what everybody knows is the pinnacle teachings, which will, be the unconditional love, the acceptance, the grace, the, all of those beautiful high vibrational teachings that they're in our life to help us learn and model for us.
Yeah. What would you say is the most common of them?
Well, I think there's always some type of pinnacle teaching, but because people are usually calling me because there's a behavior or there's a physical issue with their animal, when I connect through Tandem Healings, especially with the animal and their person, they're almost always going to have an emotional wound agreement and be mirroring abandonment or mirroring the invasiveness wound. It's just, I'm trying to think if there's been a time where I haven't had them mirror when I connect to an animal. It's just so always there that if I'm working on an animal with abandonment, that when their person heals an unresolved abandonment wound in their background, that's when they both heal together and there's no longer the codependent relationship or the separation anxiety that might be showing up due to the unhealed abandonment wound.
Gotcha. So if somebody has had a lot of animals, is that inferring they have a lot of problems, or?
No. They're a big. They're going to have different contracts with different people. Is it natural for someone who has had a lot of trauma and abuse in their background, where some part of their psyche says that people are not safe, and so we kind of don't let as many people get close to us? I'm including myself in this. Then yes, it is natural for us to pivot and allow more animals in because they are that safe love, and because we are, just because we're in a body, we do long for relationship. And especially females are going to long to mother. It's unconscious. And so that's going to allow more animals in just due to the fact that, somebody has some type of trauma in their background. It's not always the case, but it's real likely that can be one of the big reasons why some people do have more animals.
Well, I've often said sometimes that I trust animals more than I trust people. So I can certainly see that concept and that aspect. I've always had a lot of animals, so I was trying to think of, what were the times in my life when certain animals came into my life, and what might I have been working on with them, and you kind of, your book made me look at my animals with much deeper respect than I had before, because I hadn't given them credit for a consciousness that would understand, that process of making a contract. And I don't know why, but I just, that had never occurred to me. But
right. I think I was the same way. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it makes perfect sense. And when you talked about the animals who, had those, are parts of those awful ASPCA animal ads that have been, traumatized and mistreated. It's just, why would anybody come in to do that? And yet, if you'll excuse the reference back to Christianity, Jesus came in here to be beaten and die. So, and ultimate love, so that I would think animals are the same, and they are certainly, capable of the same thing. So it makes you look at those pets that gather around us and help us through all of the difficult times that we do go through, and to have the awareness that from time to time your animal is going to mirror something that's going on inside of you is really, it makes you pay more attention. And I've always known that if there was anxiety or stress in the house, that the animals were going to reflect that, but I never had gone deeper into it. So you started out as an animal healer, and then realized that you could expand it to the owner as well. Is that how that went?
It was the opposite. It was
okay.
actually the opposite. I'd always wanted to be a psychotherapist, but I was awful at school, and I didn't get the degree for it. So when I found a class, a 4-year class here in the Atlanta area that was at the Center for Integrative Therapy that really focused on these 5 core emotional wounds within people, I signed up for that almost immediately, as soon as I could get in. And when I wasn't that far into the class where I thought, I wonder if this will work on animals as well, since I'm since animals were so important to me. And then I started asking friends if I could work on their animals. And that's really, it was really pretty early even in that, before I even started charging for animal sessions way back when I would look at the animal and just see the mirroring. Of course, I'd always had mirroring with my animals, and even before I realized what was going on, I was like you. It's like, well, no, actually I was not even as advanced as what you were, because in my 20s and 30s, animals were, gosh, I look back, they were working hard for me, and they were really carrying my physical issues as well. And I had a lot of physical issues back then, a lot of surgeries. And if I would get asthma, one of my animals would get asthma. If I got a UTI, another animal would get a UTI. And it was so apparent that even back then, I thought, what are the odds of that? How is that possible? That I'm getting something and then my animal has the exact same physical ailment almost instantaneously. There's got to be something to that. But as soon as I started working on my friend's animals, it was the same thing. I remember one of the very first sessions I did was on my friend Andrea, her horse, who had just gotten diagnosed with the abbreviation was OCD, but it was a leg ailment that meant that the horse would not be able to walk on it and it certainly would never be able to run. And Andrea had wanted to have her impregnate, get her pregnant once, get a foal just once, and she'd always had that dream, and the vet had said she will never be able to, period. She won't be able to endure that. And after the second session, this horse was running, and she gave birth, a year later, and it was fascinating. But to me, the mirroring part comes in that Andrea had a bad leg on the same side of the body.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, have you wondered about the fact that your leg is out and her leg is out? And so it was like she raised her awareness around that, and I believe is working on that as well. And I think that that's really what allowed Maxie, her horse, to heal that quickly. Sometimes they're just trying to show us something about ourselves so we can look at a higher level of awareness and begin to love ourselves more and get help to heal our inner wounds. And once we do that, they no longer have to carry it. Sometimes they can miraculously heal. Pretty incredible.
Well, let me ask you then, if we make this kind of a contract in spirit before we incarnate, that animal isn't going to necessarily incarnate with us at the same time. It's sort of an open-ended contract in that contract is triggered at a certain time in our lives so that the animal is incarnated in order to find us and share with us that experience.
Right, yeah, and I think our higher selves, of course, while we're sleeping at night, we're probably all talking on the other side about these things, especially with the two that I have, with me right now, the two kitty cats. One of them has certainly been with me at least once before, if not more. I'm sure I'll find that out once I pass, maybe before. But my other one is, I talked about that first one that, my first cat that passed, Kahlua. Well, the other, Kalua's back with me now as Rumi, as a male. And it's the third time that I'm aware of in this life alone that this soul has been with me. So I know they're part, that these guys are part of my soul team.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've had a number of cats that I was sure were quote unquote magical. I had one named Smudge. Now, he passed when he was 6 years old, but he first came to me as Misty, and he was with me for 13 years. Misty passed, and 3 years later, Smudge came into my life. It was the same cat. I mean, she even knew where things were hidden. So, it was really strange. And when he passed, I was wrung out, and somebody said, well, you can get another cat, and I looked at them and said, you can never replace one of these pets, these friends. You can't, if you died, would I just get another friend? It doesn't work that way. But I said, but he'll be back. Now, I know he'll be back. I don't know when, but I'm waiting. I know that at some point in time I will see him and connection will be there. Third time's a charm, I guess. But while we're talking about our pets, somebody has called up who has checked your website out, and she has a pet called, I love this, Sweet Baby Gizmo, and she wanted to talk to you. You okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is Lisa. Hi, Lisa, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you so much. I love hearing this because this mirroring, you don't seem to have a problem with it, because I was actually yelled at by a healer I hired for my dog, who told me that because I was sick, I had made her sick and gave her a terrible life, and that I should never have another pet.
Oh, I'm sorry you had that experience.
So another healer.
Relieving, yeah. Little Gizmo is 16 and 5 months, and she's been having a rough year. She had to have her pyloric valve removed from her stomach. I guess dogs with pushed-in faces, there's 5 breeds, their pyloric valve just closes up. And she had such a spirit about her that she had 4 IV sites, a cone on her head, and a gastral tube, and she was running around Tufts, visiting with everybody. And we thought, how can we not give her a chance?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of repercussions from the surgery, but they sent her home on hospice care and 1 million drugs, and I threw all the drugs in the garbage, but all natural remedies that I had been reading about, and she's still with us.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm just not wanting to put her through more than she wants to go through. She does have little bouts with different things, and then her spirit picks up and she's running down the hall, so I'm just not sure. I don't want to do the wrong thing for her. I just want to do everything right for her because she deserves everything.
Well, trust your heart connection with that. And if you're worried that your heart connection is kind of foggy because you love her so much, of course, just know that you can sit in quiet and just go drop to your heart, and there's absolutely this beautiful golden cord from your heart to hers. Is it a male? Is it Gizmo? Is it a female or a male?
It's a girl.
Yeah, so you can connect with her heart to heart of just sinking into your heart connection and closing your eyes and then asking those questions about, tell me when it's right for you or not. I've always done that for my animals. I've asked them for real clear signs, and I've always gotten them, and I will always encourage my clients to do that as well. And so you can even create whatever sign that is. You don't want to get too specific. I have somebody get really specific. You're like, when they jump up and down the bed 5 times, I'll know that's what they mean. It's like, no. We can't do that. But you will know when you trust your heart connection that when is their time. And I've always asked my animals if they can let me know that just ahead of the curve enough where we're not having those last moments in an emergency room in a lot of suffering state,
My prayer is that God gave her to me. He's got to call her home in her sleep because I can't kill an ant. I just can't.
Yeah.
Guess what? You get to die today. I can't. I'll take care of her every last second no matter what it takes out of me.
Well, then I'm sure that every animal that comes into your home and heart signed up for that in advance. So I will pray for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I just ordered your books. Thank you so much for everything you do for the animals.
Oh, you're most welcome. Do you have any other questions?
I don't know. Is there one I should be asking that I don't know enough to ask?
No. I just want to be able to answer anything that you have. You'll like the second chapter in the book because it's called The Sacred Transition of the Animal Soul, and it talks about different ways that the different clients I've had and different things that you can do to create a very sacred final chapter, however you choose to do it.
Okay.
And you can't be wrong. Whatever you do that you do with love is the right thing to do.
And I didn't make her sick because I was a sick girl when I got her. I didn't cause her to have health problems.
You would have both signed up for that. That's a contract that you guys would have had, and they will absolutely do that. They're evolving their souls as well. And if you two teamed up together, then that means that, you heard me talk about, the animals that had the same ailments as I had, right? And so, the goal, of course, is so that we do continue our own inner healing journey. And, of course, our animals reflect that as well. But they absolutely would have volunteered to do that and hold that space for you so that you would suffer less.
That does make me sad. The last thing I want is for her to ever have a bad day.
Oh, I know we love them so much, but we would take away their pain as well, and lots of times we do that. So know that goes both ways. They want to serve us, and we want to serve them. It's a mutual love fest that we want to help each other.
That is so amazing. I have a wonderful vet who actually looked me in the face last year and said, our animals mirror us. And that was the first time I had heard that.
Wow.
Because I think we both had pancreatitis at the time.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? That's so cool. I'm glad that there's a vet out there that's getting it. I'm hoping more and more are waking up to it. I'm sure some of them know it and maybe, are afraid to say it out loud as well.
I don't think too many know it. He's pretty darn special. Okay.
That's
well,
good.
Thank
you got a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for speaking.
Thanks for calling, Lisa, and I'll put you on hold so you can keep listening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I know Lisa has been to your website. Let me just hand it out again. It's www.tammybillups.com. Great information on there. One of the other things that I've been in this field for over 50 years, and I have always believed that animals have spirits. That's, people have said, they have an oversoul, they don't have a single soul. I believe they have their own individual spirits, their own individual souls. But I hadn't really thought about them evolving for some reason. And yet I've had some cats that were just almost human and other cats that were definitely just cats. And so I never connected the two. There have been cats that I swear knew what I was saying when I was talking, and other cats that really didn't care. They were there to love me, and that was fine, and that was it. But so, do our household pets evolve into lions and tigers and bears? Oh my, or is it a constant evolution in the domestic cat field? I mean, where do they evolve to?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there are a couple kind of lanes of thought in books that I read and in things that I see as well. And I guess we won't know for sure, of course, until one day, right? But I've seen too many animals that I work on that show me that they were different animals in their past. And I've adopted too many animals. I've adopted many animals. I had one cat that I brought him home at 4 months old, and when he wanted something, he sat up and begged and put in his, with his front legs going around in circles like a dog. Now, how did my cat know how to do that at 4 months? I happen to know that nobody was secretly training him dog tricks,
Uh-huh.
And so you see that happen, and I know that they can blip around in different bodies depending on what we're wanting, because I think it's more the soul union, and then some lives that we might be wanting to have experience with horses, and it's like if they're part of our little animal soul team, then I think that they have the ability to blip into whatever type of body they want. So, I mean, there are those that believe, like the Buddhists, that they will go through a different chain of animals, and then one day they'll become, where they'll be in more of a human body. And then there are those that believe that there are forever animals and never going to be in any type of a human type body. And so I've seen situations where there are guides or more souls that look human, maybe have been humans many times, and sometimes they can blip in and take an animal life as well for our growth. And so I think there's just all kinds of opportunities and possibilities for what we can do, from the other side and what we're arranging. And I think it's just more about those soul contracts. If I get in my head, I want an animal to look a certain way, then I can promise you that's been prearranged for them to be in that type of a body. And that's why I want, a certain golden tabby, or I have never wanted one. But, it's like we're drawn to that because we've prearranged that with that particular soul for our mutual growth.
Well, when you stop and think about it, we evolve, and at some point, as when we evolve enough as a Homo sapien, we easily could go to another dimension or another planet and, be whatever was indigenous to that planet to evolve there. So it would make perfect sense that because everything is a part of creation, that animals would be able to have the same process. And I swear to you, I have met animals that had to have been human at one time, and I have met humans that absolutely have been animals at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, or even a fairy realm, or there's just you see certain people and you can just tell, by looking at them and their actions, their backgrounds, their soul backgrounds, and I love it. Because I think we probably have free will as a soul. We get to choose what we want to do. Do we have guidance? Yes. Do we have recommendations? Yes. But I think ultimately we get to choose the type of experiences for how we want to evolve our souls. And I love it that we've got this soul group that's, of beings that look like humans, and then also animals that we can team up with. And especially for those of us that have really gravitated towards animals, then we get to learn and grow and heal alongside of them. And it's just a beautiful process. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's important for people to remember is that when we make a contract on the other side, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the same kind of contract we would think about on this side. Sometimes, I've heard people say, well, I made a contract and I'm supposed to be a world leader, or I'm supposed to be a mystical guru, or, something really quite out of this world. And the reality is it's more of I want to experience a certain situations so that I can understand the compassion and the love and the understanding that goes along with that experience. So, the kind of contracts we sign on the other side are very different from what our ego thinks of as a contract on this side. I've
hear you.
People say,
I agree.
I'm here to teach humanity. No, you're not. You're here to learn yourself. It's like, give me a rest.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You hear people say, I was Helen of Troy, or I was this, and it's like, oh, really? Wow. That's great.
Not the case. Most probably you swept the hearth for a while. There are. It's interesting to me how our concept of what our spiritual lessons are have nothing to do with what our spiritual lessons actually are.
Bummer.
For the most part. Yeah, it is. But, it's kind of like I just trust that so long as I'm a happy person, I am actually on the pathway. And even though it gets tough and is a bit uncomfortable from time to time, I know that I'm learning something, even if the concept isn't there. So when somebody is concerned about their pet and calls you for a tandem healing, what does that involve?
Well, I like to talk to each person before we even do that, because the tandem healings are really created and work best when the person is really ready to heal alongside of their animal. And it's hard because most people that are calling about their animals it so hurts them to see their animal suffering in any way that they're real focused on what will heal their animal in the fastest way possible. If that means I'm along with the session, then fine. And that's a little bit different than I realize that they're mirroring something for me. I'm ready to go to that deep place too, so that because when we go to the deeper places and to heal a particular, say, emotional wound that they might be mirroring for us, what I have found is that the animal heals much faster when the person is really taking ownership over their healing journey. And so when a person calls, I do these remotely. If they're out of the country, I'll do them through Zoom audio, but I will actually connect with their higher selves, permission, heart to heart, soul to soul, and it's almost like it looks like a triangle between our hearts, and my sessions, I've been doing it this way for a very long time, where I just kind of go into observer mode, and then I'm kind of watching everything that I'm trusting spirit as well, like you do, and just trusting that the healing energy is going where it needs to, and I am blessed to be able to see the types of emotions and feel them. They're leaving, where the traumas are, where there's structural work that's done on their sessions, that's done on their energy field, and then what they're allowing in and what might be holding them back or what traumas or whatever. So it's different in every single session. I usually recommend that people do try to, get some back to back, and it's completely up to them. But it's really fascinating. I didn't do this when I very first started my practice, but I always wanted to, because I thought, when people would call sometimes and they would be real focused on their animal, most of the time when the healing session miraculously cleared them through 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever sessions it took, if the animal behavior, they usually would see a positive impact almost immediately. But if not, it almost always had something to do with the fact that the person had not taken responsibility yet on their mirroring wound and the mirroring issue that the animal was representing or holding for them. Or, certainly they're working on it for themselves as well. So sometimes the animal would just, stop the behavior that the person didn't like, but then I would see it occasionally revert back, and they say, "What happened? It was going so well." and that's when I would kind of encourage them to, sometimes they're mirroring us. And what I have found is that sometimes if the person is ready, whenever they're ready to look at that corresponding wound, that can really help it so that it would stick with the animal, and then they're more likely to do that. But I love doing tandem healings because I love that awareness within the pairing. During them, it's fascinating to hold space to see what comes through.
I know you said that you often ask them to lay down on the same bed and just relax.
Yes.
What happens if
I want them to go to sleep.
What happens if it's a horse?
Well, horses a lot of times can pretty much, they're pretty good about sleeping when they're, they can stand and be up. But I trust that the animal, if it can't be in the house with the person, we're connecting most certainly. That the distance makes no difference, of course, with the energy work. But the animals know about the sessions well before I'm connecting. They're trying to connect with me before I'm even asking, usually. It's the people that are more thinking about things and wondering it. But it matters not if they're not physically in the same location. But with the people that can be inside and lay on their bed with their dog or their cat or whatever, then that just sets a very sacred space so that they can promote a peaceful environment, because I found that the deeper the person can go, the animals almost always just go right to sleep. And they do lots of twitching or sighs or moving their bodies as different things are moving out. But the people, when they go to sleep, I can tell the second they do, because immediately the emotions start clearing then. It's interesting.
That's such a gift. It's such, on many different levels. First of all, for the animal, and then second of all, for the person to have that much trust that there is something inside of them that they need to let go of and be able to embrace the letting go. What happens though if, say, what happens when a contract is fulfilled? Does that mean that the animal is going to pass over?
Oh, thank you for asking this question. Oh my gosh, yes. And in the final chapter of the book, I have a little blip in there that starts with the elephant in the room, and I talk about this very subject, because people will ask that all the time, and certainly if the animal passes, that can mean that we have, fulfilled the contracts that we signed up to fulfill together. But we have so many contracts, And like I'm talking a lot about how the emotional wounds we mirror. Well, there's all these other levels of contracts. And so if we fulfill one type of contract where it's like, okay, we were trying to heal abandonment together and now our abandonment wounds, and now that's done. Well, there's all these other levels of teaching that they can still have with us that we've signed up together. So it absolutely does not mean they are passing.
Okay, because, I would hate to think that, both of us getting well together suddenly meant that my pet was going to pass on because, that's a good reason to not get better.
Well, I would encourage you or anybody who's afraid of that their fear of losing their pet is greater than their seeing the benefit of being well together, to really lean into what that might be triggering for people because obviously we want the time together that we have together for we both to feel better, especially knowing that there are multiple lives and we can be together again. I would want to jump on board, or I do want to jump on board with my animals. It's like, okay, what can we heal together? And let's just keep creating contracts. Let's keep doing more. Let's do it. Let's get it so that we're feeling so great.
All right. That works for me.
Good.
Yeah, I've had a couple of animals that have gone to 21 and 22. And, it was such a pleasure to spend that much time with them. That when they did finally transition, they did it so peacefully. They just went to sleep and didn't wake up. And,
that's what we all want. How beautiful.
Oh yeah. I mean, my 21-year-old cat, I remember her. She was crawling under a bed, and I got down on the floor and I touched her paw and I said, "Everything okay, Polly?" And she, burped at me. I said, "Okay, if you need me, you just call." And the next morning, she was gone. So, 21 is a long time for a cat.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah, no, there are. I've often said now, and this is only my opinion. This is not Tammy's opinion, so she doesn't think this at all, or maybe she does. But I have always believed that people who could have pets and chose not to are missing a part of their soul. It just, to me, is having a connection to animals on any level. I mean, if there's no way that you can possibly have a pet, if you're allergic to them, or whatever the reasons, if there is absolutely no way you can have one, and you choose to not, and you don't want to be around pets, that there's something inside of you that for me, it isn't that they aren't good people. It's just that there's a part of compassion and love in there that is empty at the moment. And I can almost pick them out.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, there's animals have. I think people who gravitate towards animals have, as a whole, certainly not all, have a higher level of empathy. Overall, are more empathetic. Because the animals certainly draw in introverts, and those that are really empathetic and compassionate people can relate to the love of animals, I think, much easier.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the prisoners who train dogs, and these really rough, tough people, men, train dogs so that they can be service dogs and stuff like that when they're in jail. So, it softens the spirit. It's just amazing. And the other thing that you talk about that I have always firmly believed is that pets, especially dogs and cats and horses, are telepathic. And if you take the time, you can really communicate with your pet telepathically.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Some are a little bit more open and better at it than others. I guess I mean that for people and for animals. But you absolutely can. Oh, my gosh, yes. You know, I have a story in the book. This might be a really good place. Do you mind if I share one of the stories?
Please do.
Yeah, there's a story that in the second chapter in the Sacred Transition of the Animal Soul, you just brought that to mind, about Jeff and Jasmine. And actually, it's interesting because the manuscript was gone through editing. It was almost ready to go to print and get finalized when I had this happen with this Jeff, who called me about his dog Jasmine, who was, I think, 17 years old. And Jasmine had lost her ability to use her hind legs maybe 6 months before, but she was still very cognizant, very wanted to play, wanted to eat everything, you know. But what you just made me think of was that as I was talking to him, he would say that he's in the shower and he would sense that she needed something, you know, because she just laid on this bed in his office, you know, and he would carry her around as she needed it. And she was a big dog. She was a really big dog. And he said, I would sometimes be at the grocery store and instantly know that Jasmine needed me, and I would rush home to her. And we have those types of connections with our animals. We can have them if we are not aware of them, and we can nurture that connection as well by just sitting and looking at them and thinking and sending a visual and trying to tune into them heart to heart. And we absolutely can get messages from them that way, and through our dreams as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, it's there's a place around here that is a rescue farm, and she rescues animals, you know, everything from crows and pigs and chickens and ducks to horses and cows and whatever. And she has an indoor riding rink, and she takes children who are nonverbal, and she puts them on the horses, and the horse will communicate with the child, and then the child with the horse, and then the horse with her, so she can find out what the child is feeling and thinking.
Oh, I love that.
It is just amazing. And to see these children who are nonverbal and you know, aren't talking with sign language or anything, and to watch them learn how to ride the horse and communicate with the horse what they want it to do, where they can't talk, and yet the horse knows exactly what they want it to do.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing thing I have ever seen. And,
I love it.
The
of course, the young ones haven't lost their connection, or they're not overthinking anything. They're not too far living out of the left side of their brain, you know. So they've got that connection. They should think of the Avatar movie where they're taking the tail of the horse to their, you know, to their hair, and they make the bond, right?
Yeah.
And then you instantly read each other's minds, and that is so possible.
Well, it's just because I have worked with telepathy with my animals, and it's not something I do constantly. I should, but I had a number of years ago, I had a split level, and there was a screen out onto the deck, and they could open the screen, but they never shut it. And you know, I worked with them for a very long time, and if I was in the room and I saw them opening the screen, I would send to them. I sent pictures, and I would send the picture of them closing the screen, and I would say 9 out of 10 times they would turn around and close the screen.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. I remember when I had a barn. I lived in a house with this big barn, and as soon as I moved in, there were, of course, feral cats that lived in the barn because, you know, it was me moving in, so they probably knew that. And I remember when I wanted to get them all neutered, and I would leave out a trap because I was just going to, you know, of course they got fed by me, and they had beds in the upper rafters and everything, right? But I wanted to get them neutered, and I had this system down where I was set in meditation, and I would send a message to the one I wanted to get, because obviously I didn't want the same one to go in, right? You know, one that I'd had neutered already. And every single time I would call in that one. I'm like, okay, I have it out there. Here's what's going to happen. This is why. I want it to happen, and I need you to go in. And every single time it would be the exact cat that would go in the trap.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the communication you can have with them, and yet lots of times when you experience it and see it, you think, oh, that's coincidence. But it's not. There's no such thing as coincidence. I had one that was bipolar, and he had medication, and he wasn't a friendly bipolar cat, so there was no way I was going to get a pill down him and live for longer than maybe a week. But so I had it made into a transdermal cream that I would put in his ear. Now, it didn't irritate his ear or anything like that. It was just once a day I had to put this little bit of cream into his ear so it would go into his blood system. And if I was, whatever I was doing, if I thought, oh, darn, I have to get Angel his medication, Angel was gone. He was gone. He was a house cat, but he was gone. And I would have to sit someplace, clear my head, clear my breathing, and see Angel getting up and stretching and licking himself, and then slowly walking to wherever I was and getting up on the couch or my bed or whatever. And within 10 minutes, he was there, not happily, but he was there, and I gave him the cream, and we were fine for another day. So
I love that. That's beautiful.
It was just amazing, and I got one of my cats now. Every now and then I will take a nap, more often than not. And poof, no matter where she is, I won't say anything. I won't say nap time or anything like that. I will just go into my bedroom and start to move the covers around, and suddenly there's poof, because she does nap time. And if I don't take a nap, she's on the bed looking at me like, well, and it's like, not today, poof. And she'll sit there for quite a while thinking maybe I'll change my mind, I guess. But there's such an amazing quality that you can generate and evolve with your pets beyond what you have already. No matter what level you're on, there's always another level you can go to expand the connection that you've got with them. Have you ever found that sometimes you've had many lifetimes with a pet, or people have had many lifetimes with a certain pet?
Oh, absolutely. And I have experienced that with many of my animals. And I've seen when I'm connected, and especially during a tandem session, I'll sometimes see what I coined soul chat rooms, and I'll see the higher selves chatting and kind of overseeing what was happening during the session. And sometimes I'm privy to knowing that they have been together many, many times. And so it's absolutely possible. They can come back to us. And I think that we have, these soul groups that we work with consistently between certain, and of course, then it expands out. There's all these grids around our connections with different beings, of course. But I believe that there are certain animals that we incarnate with time and time again, and that we know them very well,
Is there any way somebody can? Now I know Barbara Streisand spent, I think it cost her $50,000 for each puppy, but she cloned her favorite dog, and it cost her $50,000 for the two puppies she got out of the one dog. Rather than do that, because not everybody has that kind of money, is there any way of, when you've had a especially close connection, inviting the spirit of that animal to come back again another time in this lifetime?
Yeah, you absolutely can do that. I believe, and I've actually, as I was doing research for the book, as I talk about this subject, and I actually reached out to people to ask them, have you ever done that successfully? And I ask clients as well, or if you worked with somebody to help you bring back a certain animal, has tell me about that, and how did it work? Tell me what was the outcome. And it's absolutely possible. But I truly believe that the higher route to go, the highest path to go, is to trust your journey and to trust what you have called in, and to trust that there are no mistakes and no coincidences. So while we have these beautiful connections with certain souls, it could be we're trying to learn and heal something else, and we've got this, contract with a particular animal that may not be that animal that our inner child wants to have back, or that a part of our being just really wants to nurture that feeling that we have when we're together. But if we just trust the process and put our desires out there, I believe that the animals that come in our life are the right and perfect ones for our growth.
I totally agree. Now, you mentioned that our animals have spirit guides the same way we do. Are they animal spirit guides, or are they people spirit guides?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've seen, it's funny because I saw something the other day I hadn't seen it with a session. Thank goodness I was able to share it with the person, that they were open to it. But I will frequently see like fairies from the fairy realm that are flitting around in the sessions around an animal. And, I've read many books that there's a being that's attached to every flower, every animal in nature for protection. But I've also seen other animals possibly they have shared a life with that are around them. And, of course, they have their little angel team as well. I mean, they've got beings that are guiding them in their decisions and giving them little, nudges just like we do. It's incredible. I mean, they're on their path, and I love it when I'm able to see different beings like that pop in that are helping them. And a lot of times I will see a person or an animal that they shared, they have lost as well, that maybe they may be teamed up on the other side. And sometimes I wonder if I see that mainly for the person that I'm talking to help them feel good about knowing that they're together.
Yeah. I had a Sheltie once that I swear in his past life was a bulldog. And it was the weirdest thing. This little Sheltie would get between my legs and bark at these huge dogs that were going around, kind of like he was big. And it was like I looked down at him and say, "Are you serious? Do you know how big you actually are?" And this little bark is going out like, "Don't come near me. I'm bigger than you." And it's like, "No, you're not." Have you looked in the mirror? I mean, I think that if you have a pet and you get involved with a pet and you get to know them, you begin to see more human qualities to them than it's surprising the kind of characteristics you really can pick up with them if you take the time to. And I think one time when we were talking, I asked you about spirit animals and if you ever saw them. In other words, ghost animals, I guess, is the best. Not bad ghosts, but I guess phantom animals. I don't know what you would call them.
Yeah, I don't know that it's weird because when you said that, it made me think of how I'll be in a session with an animal and I'll see a person's soul that has not gone to the light yet, and that they have also attached to the animal, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, the other day I had a situation where the animal had the complaint was that the animal all of a sudden was acting very not himself, and would pace at night in the middle of the night, and then would just sit in like a corner of the room and just stare at the wall, at one spot on the wall, and then would go to another room and do the same thing. And this was highly unusual for this dog and out of the ordinary. And as soon as I connected with him, I saw this being, this probably person that, had not gone to the light, but this person showed me that they spent their last who knows how many years in a wheelchair, where the person would they were parked and forced to stare at a certain thing. And that at night they could never sleep. And so he left, and the dog immediately stopped doing those things. And I'm seeing more and more of that, where I'm noticing that where there's people souls that are attaching to animals' light as well. They can attach, of course, to us, but they're easy to clear during a session. But I'm sure that there are also animal souls. I can't think of a story off the top of my head to share with you though, but yeah, I think most of the people that I'm talking to are have such a belief in the afterlife. And so I'm assuming that that's the case, that their animals are, of course, going to be crossing with more ease and grace because of their belief.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because I have two here in the house. One is Smudge.
Oh, cool.
And Smudge is seen by everybody. He wanders around. And when the cleaning lady started, I said, "Now look, there is a spirit cat here. And, don't be frightened." And she looked at me like, "Okay, crazy cat lady," and it was, I don't know, a week or so later, she came in, she looked at me and she said, "I saw Smudge." And I said, "Yeah, upstairs, right?" And she said, "Yeah." And ever since then, she'll often say, "Oh, Smudge was in the living room," or "Smudge was here," or "Smudge was there." And my late husband didn't believe in any of this, and I remember him sitting in the kitchen and suddenly looking under the table, and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "A gray cat just rubbed against me. Did one get in by accident?" And I said, "No, that's Smudge." And he said, "Yeah, right." And I said, "Well, where is it?" And he said, "I don't know." And a couple of hours later, he looked underneath again, and he said, "I see the whole cat. There's a whole gray cat there." And I said, "That's Smudge." And he said, "It's right. He's right under the table." I said, "Really?" And he looked under and he said, "Where did he go?" And it took 4 or 5 times for Smudge to break him in, but then he would say, "Yeah, Smudge was upstairs again," or whatever. And my last cat, Leo, who was 14, when he transitioned, a day later he was walking around the kitchen, and several friends of mine said, I thought Leo passed on," and I said he did. And it was like he just walked through the kitchen, Barbara, and I said, "I know, he's here." So, and I'm not haunted. I'm just delighted that they are hanging around.
Oh, I love that for you too. That's pretty awesome. My Kahlua, my first cat when she passed, she stuck around for a really long time too, and it was wonderful to see her. It was very comforting.
Have you noticed that with a lot of people, when a cat or a dog passes over and they've really been an integrated part of the family, that at night they will feel them jumping onto the bed?
Some of them can, absolutely. I know. I've experienced that.
It's such a cool feeling where somebody's jumped onto the bed and you turn the light on and there's nobody there. So.
Yeah.
I love that connection. So for people who want to get, for how do I put this? Everyone I have ever talked to that was experienced in this field, as you are, the one thing that they all say that is a good technique and way to expand yourself, to get into another area, to move into a greater depth of understanding, is meditation. Do you recommend that to everybody?
Absolutely. Yes. And animals, animals meditate every single day. they just they listen to their instincts, and it's an important thing that they do as they foster their connection. Because during meditation, we are healing during meditation. We are raising our vibration. We are getting connected to a source that has the ability to heal us and ground us and help us feel better. And so animals instinctively get that, and they're doing that all day long. A lot of times it's all day long. And, you know, and so for us it's just as important, you know, not just to check off a box that we meditated, but to really sink into it like the animals do. We should just be like them, right?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't mind being able to sleep 90% of the time. But, you know, I feel strongly that, you know, when people get a pet, they don't realize the precious gift they've got sometimes. And
right.
the more you get to know your who you're sharing your life with, the more you can learn about yourself. And so it's so important to, and a lot of the stuff, while you certainly do facilitate, you know, healing and all sorts of stuff like that with an understanding and a comprehension of what contracts are and everything else, it also is a good practice to really try to figure out yourself what your contracts might be. And you know, if there is a physical difficulty or something like that you can't figure out, then certainly having several sessions with you would be a wonderful way to kind of get to the center of what's going on. I mean, you know, kind of like you can go to the expert and figure it out in 4 sessions, or you can spend a year or so trying to figure it out yourself.
Right. Well, and sometimes we never know exactly what the contracts are, but and that's okay. You know, I mean, I had a question the day about, you know, here was a situation with this animal and they passed. Did I miss the lesson? Did I miss the contract? And I don't think that that's possible. It could be that they haven't reached the point where they got it yet. But that doesn't mean that what they were supposed to do together didn't happen. You know, I mean, because lots of times it's years later and they go, oh, I finally get that they helped me through this, or I wouldn't have understood this without that animal. And it's okay whenever it comes in, or if it doesn't. It doesn't matter. The contracts, you just trust it at a soul level. It's through the living of those contracts. That's the important part. It's not the knowing what the contracts are.
Yeah, that's so true. Because, you know, and lessons and contracts, for anybody that's ever signed a contract, there's a lot of small print, and there's lots and lots of pages. It isn't just one thing. It's many different levels of understanding and comprehension, and you can peel them, you know, away slowly, but it's sort of like sometimes it could be abandonment, and then after that it could be trust, and then after that it could be so many different other things, so that it isn't just one thing. And lots of times you miss the different levels because, you know, you just don't have the understanding to know something has been helped, or something has been changed, or something has been opened up, and there's a greater flow of energy. You often don't have to know why. It's the fact that it happened, and there was a shift inside your own energy for some reason that enabled it to happen because of your pet.
Beautifully stated. Oh my gosh, I wish I had that on recording. That was great.
Well, you can go to the archive if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You don't have to, but you can go to the YouTube channel and find it. Let's see. It was a minute and 20 into the interview, roughly.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
an hour and 20.
Beautiful.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I knew what you meant. But beautifully stated, though. It really is so true, and I love the comparison to a real contract and the different details of the contracts. And sometimes we don't know what all those details are. Sometimes they're, you know, in a different level of awareness. But I love what you just said. It is so true. We just, we will know what we know when we know it, and when we're ready to know it.
It's like a credit card. You never can read. I mean, even with magnifying glasses, I can't read all that small print. So, the most important stuff is in the teeny tiny print. It's in that stuff that is felt and known, but not and understood, but not on a consciousness level. Because face it, our spirit is evolving, and we don't even understand what it is for the spirit to evolve. We kind of understand, but until we cross over and we're in spirit ourselves, we won't really understand what the purpose was of so much that went on during the lifetime.
Yeah, I agree, and that'll be fun to see all the different ahas we have when we get over there. And it's wonderful to see them here too. It's wonderful just to be awake enough to be able to see different things, to see the symbolism in their actions as well. Sometimes when they're doing something that we don't like, and I think about the times when I remember when I was doing this work and I was still doing a mainstream gig, that I did from home, my own business as well, to support myself for many years. But I got where I really didn't like doing that anymore at all. But so I was kind of resenting it and not even realizing how much I hated it. But every time I was on a really important call, my cat Sundance would get up in front of me and she would start meowing. And she had the loudest meow of any cat I've ever been around. And I would be honest, CEO would say, "Is that your cat?" And it'd always be a big joke. And I would put her rooms down, close her in the door when I know I had an important call. And you could still hear her. She was amazing on trying to get the door open and get to me anytime I was on an important call in that line of work. Until one day I realized that she's making me angry. And it's like, okay, she's not making me angry. She's showing me that I have anger that's repressed. And then I sat and started working with that. Well, what am I angry about? Well, I'm angry that I'm still doing this work. And once I realized how much anger I had about it, then I put together a plan to get out of that and do this full time, which has been many, many years ago now. And immediately from that day forward, Sundance did not do that anymore.
Wow.
She did not meow when I was on the phone, because I still did it for a bit longer. I just put together a plan to get out of that business. And so they're doing these things that there's just so many different levels. I think about another time when I thought this deal in that business was completely gone, and they were big deals and beautiful and a lot of work when I had them, and I thought this deal was just unrevivable, if that's in a word. And then I watched my cat Mai Tai try to jump in an area, and at that point he was probably 14 maybe years old. He was trying to jump up on this armoire that he's never tried to jump on before, and he was so focused on it. And he would jump from this side and he would fall and not make it, and then he went around the other side, and I was just watching him like, "What are you doing, dude?" And yes, he was so focused, and he was like, "No, wait, there's still another way. There's still another way to get there." And he finally did. And then I realized, well, what's that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, there must be another way for this deal to work. And there was. And that deal ended up, and I thought it was just gone until I watched my cat find another way to do something that looked impossible. And so these symbolism contracts that we have with them in the moment, they're always, the universe is using them all the time. Their psyche, our psyche, are calling in, answers for us within any given problem, perceived problem that we are having. There are messages that can come in from all different kinds of sources around us in those moments, and our animals are used so much for that. It's really amazing.
Wow. Have you ever read any of David Mitchie's books?
No, let me write down that. David Mitchie is his last name?
Michie. He's written The Dalai Lama's Cat, The Art of Purring.
Yeah, I think I do have that, yeah.
The Power of the Meow, and The 4 Paws for Spiritual Success. Cool books. Cute. Cool. I mean, they're serious books. And I think your book goes right along with them, to be honest with you, because there's a sense here of there's really a part of being in you don't own the pet and they don't own you. This is a partnership. So that there's a reason they're there with you, for you, and for them, and to share that sacred space with them and learn from them is, just think how hard it must be as an animal to get a point across to a human who doesn't speak cat.
Yes, or are not aware enough to realize these things they're trying to do to get us these answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, Poof was crying like crazy today, and I kept looking for her to see if she's hurt or stuck or something. And she kept walking out of the bathroom and then walking back in, and I went in, and she has this horrible habit of dropping her toys in the toilet to wash them and then not being able to get them out. And she had dropped one of her stuffed mice into the toilet, and I had to fish it out for her. And she looked at me like, don't you understand the tragedy that is here? And, I was just grateful it wasn't a live mouse again, because those are tough to get out of the toilet.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She thinks they're more fun than the stuffed ones, but I'm not thrilled with that one. Those I let outside. But
that's good.
Oh yeah. When they actually find one in the house or trap one, I usually catch it before they do. And what I love is they keep looking for it, and they don't realize that I've caught it and let it loose. So I am a better mouser than both my cats. But I think that you have to understand that there's got to be frustration sometimes on their end, because they're it's humans don't seem to be getting the message they're trying to give them. And I think we have to. I truly believe we have to pay greater attention to what they're trying to share with us. We're not just supposed to feed them and empty their litter box. There's a message, a wisdom, a purpose to the connection.
Yes. These are highly intelligent beings, and the spiritual beings that we have teamed up with to partner for our shared evolution. And when we just raise our level of awareness in any given moment to look at them differently, to look at them with new eyes and think, what is this message for me? What can this mean? Then we've helped both of us, because they are certainly, they maybe they are frustrated with it. I don't know, but certainly I know in my past I have missed a lot of messages, without a doubt. I'm sure we all have.
Well, it's funny because I do a spiritual development group with some ladies, and we've worked with gemstones and we've worked with tarot cards, and without fail, one, if not both of the cats end up on the table, not playing with the stones, but moving them around to different places. And I've even seen them when I do a reading of some sort on the countertop here. I have seen one of them sit there and stare at the cards with me and move cards to a different place. And I always trust what they've done, because I feel that, there was real purpose and thought in what they did, and maybe it meant something more where they put it than where I had put it in the first place. So,
I agree.
While they don't have a business card, every now and then, I tell people often they've been CAT scanned.
That's so great. I used to have one cat that I would lay out my cards, and I would always trust her, and I'm like, choose the card, and she would go right up and she would pick one card, and I would put out what my question was, and then I would ask her to pick the card, and I always knew that she was a better card picker than me.
It's true. They come from another level of consciousness, another level of perception, and don't forget that their eyes are much better than ours.
Yeah.
So that they may well be seeing into other dimensions that we can't see. I know. I mean, if anybody has had, especially a dog, but cats too, they'll be sitting and suddenly they'll be looking all over the room as though they're following something, and it's usually not a bug or a piece of dust. There's usually something there, and they can see it and you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool.
It is, absolutely. I can usually see it with them, but so I get to see what they're chasing after in my world. But it is fun, and absolutely they can have beings of light from the other side that are playing with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I woke up one evening after my mother had passed, and I heard ka-thump, 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 ka-thump. And I got curious, and I walked into the living room, and here was a piece of tissue just floating in the air, and the cats were jumping for it. And it was floating up and down. It wasn't just drifting from nowhere. It was definitely almost like it was on a string, but it wasn't. And I knew there was someone there. I didn't know who it was, but I just said, I can't sleep with this ka-thumping. Could you do this, sometime during the day? So, and the tissue just floated to the floor, and the two cats looked at me like, what?
Joy stealer.
So, yeah, I definitely, but I'm pretty sure that they did get to play at other times when I wouldn't have cared if it was during the daytime. I was just trying to sleep.
Yeah.
So this tandem healing that you do, where is it leading you? Because it does feel as though it's only a stepping stone. It's not the final plateau.
That's a great question. I don't know that I have an answer for that. I know that's a big part of my journey right now is helping people raise their awareness to know that that they can possibly help their animals more by healing alongside of them. And maybe it's yet to be determined what the next level will be.
It just seems as though, you're so, I mean, I don't think you're done, and it seems that there's always got to be another step, or you wouldn't be here anymore.
Yes, there will be. I mean, I don't know if I shared with you how even this book came, because my last book came out in 2018, and it was 7 years from the time of the idea of the book to its conception of having one in my hand. And Animal Soul Contracts came through within weeks after getting Bodhi and Rumi, and a bunch of whole spiders in the house. That was one night where the spiders about the written word, and spiders kept coming to me a lot, and until one night it kind of reached this big plateau of, oh my gosh, all of a sudden there's like a East Coast tarantula, I call it, but it's a wolf spider that was in the house at midnight and had a mate, and the female had, I'm guessing, about 150 babies on her back, and my two new kittens started playing with them, and so they were going everywhere, up walls, up the refrigerator, up everywhere. But and so I didn't create a lot of good spider karma that night. But soon after that, I went in meditation. This book came to be, and it just came out of nowhere. And I saw the pyramid of the 7 levels, that are in the front of that Soul Contracts chapter. And immediately I sent the idea off to my publisher, and I had sent him several other ideas after, because I'm a next project kind of person, what's the next thing? And he had never responded, but with this, I sent him, there's this whole other level to my work I haven't talked about yet. Here's what I see the name Animal Soul Contracts. And he responded within an hour saying, I love it. I want this and this and this. And, a year later, I have a book. in my hand, and I didn't even realize it could go that fast. So my point is that I'm assuming that the next project is going to come through, and I'm trusting the process more.
Well, yeah,
I'm really trusting the process.
Actually.
Right, but I'm not overthinking it. No, I mean, I have a whole, new Zoom. I have lots of Zoom master classes that I teach now. I teach animal practitioners and, of course, animal lovers as well. I have a whole class around the first book around these 5 core emotional wounds and how they show up in animals and their people. And I've been doing that for many, many years, and it's really kind of what I'm most known for. But now I've got a whole program that I'm launching in October about the contents in the animal soul contract. So that's kind of where my mind is right now, is around this Zoom class for that. But as far as the next thing beyond that, I don't know. I don't know what it will be at this point. But I trust that it's going to come through and it's going to be great. But if you have any guidance for me around that, I am open for it.
Well, it felt to me as though this is a wonderful stepping stone. And I don't know what it's to, but I think it's fascinating that you had a pyramid, and that the Egyptians revered cats. So I'm wondering if there is some sort of major spiritual message that the ancient wisdom of the cats has to bring to humanity at this time. Lord knows we could use it. And it's I think during these times of the difficulty that we're going through, whether it's upheaval or it's viruses or whatever, we are coming to a time where everyone is seeking for spiritual enlightenment and understanding, and certainly having pets, as companions along the way to help us understand. It makes great sense, not as a familiar, but as a partner. And I think that I think you have an amazing gift being able to help people sort of translate what it is that's going on between them and their companions. But it just seems like you're gonna go further with it. And probably that comes down to some sort of spiritual wisdom and awareness as to the evolution of the human spirit along with their partners.
Oh, I love that. Well, we will see. And I hear what you're saying. And I'm sure when my publisher, sent me their first cover for Animal Soul Contracts, the one critique I had, because I sent the image of the paw and the hand, so they used that. But I said to them, well, the font on the book looks really similar to the font that you guys chose for the first book, and I was just thinking I wanted it to look different. And they said, no, we want all of your books to have similar fonts. And I just laughed, thinking all of my books, because you're in the middle of writing. It's so much work, Oh yeah. It's just so much work that the thought of another book is something that's way off the radar when you're in the midst of writing one, because it is just a lot of dedication to go into it. So I laughed when my publisher said that, and I thought, oh, no, there's not going to be another book. And then, of course, that's what I said last time.
Oh, yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as me, I can only give what I feel, for my own personal development and the stuff that every time I complete something or I come to a place where I think I've kind of got something down pat, that there's another level that needs to be discovered and sort of either dug up or ascended into. And it just feels like the partnership that we have with it's really cool because what you're doing is you're helping people to communicate with another species. And I do personally believe, only my own personal belief, that there was a time, probably way before the last mass destruction, where we were able to really communicate and get along with all animal life, and that means lions and tigers and bears, so that there was open communication between Homo sapiens and that realm of other beings and the fairies, gnomes, and elves, and so that everything flowed together. There was open communication, understanding, trust, love, and it was a whole. And today we have the human realm, we have the animal realm, we have the fairy realm, we have the fish realm, and they're all different realms, but they've been fragmented. The totality of what this planet is supposed to be has been fragmented. And what you're facilitating is those realms coming together and blending again. Mm-hmm. So that this realm, this world, it's a way of coming to wholeness that we lost, eons and eons ago.
Yes, back in Atlantis and Lemuria. Yes.
Yeah, so it isn't just communication. What you're doing is facilitating a coming together of wholeness, and maybe if we work with animals, someday we'll be able to work with our fellow man to come together again. And maybe we have to learn to be loving companions to our pets before we can be really loving companions to each other.
Oh, I think so. I mean, they certainly teach us compassion, and that's one of the main things that some of these animals that choose to be with a person who holds no empathy and no compassion, to help them awaken just for a moment to have compassion in their hearts. I mean, that's just so incredible that an animal would even choose that route to such a noble cause to help humanity in that way.
Oh, absolutely. And you had a story about a man who had a little dog and fell on it, mm-hmm. and the message that the little dog had. Can you tell that story? Because that's such a touching story.
Yeah, that's actually in the first chapter, and I was actually doing a session on someone else. I had clients, Kathy and her husband Michael, and they rescue Yorkies, adult Yorkies. They're usually seniors when they get them, for whatever reason, maybe their person passed or whatever, but they take in rescued Yorkies, and during a session I was doing on someone else in person in my office, all of a sudden I saw this soul chat room bubble behind me or above me, and I know, and Kathy had texted me earlier that day that that Maddie, that there was an accident and that they were rushing Maddie to the vet. Well, Maddie was also a senior. She had lots of physical issues, but they would trust that they would know the time. And that morning, here Michael is probably 6'6", I'm going to guess, and got tripped up and fell on top of Maddie, and they rushed her to the vet. And oh my gosh, he loved, like they were so close, and he was just, oh, you can imagine how you would feel. I can imagine how I would feel if something like that happened, where you think, oh my gosh, I'm responsible. But I saw this, and I didn't know she had passed at the time I was doing the client session, and all of a sudden I saw their higher selves, and she was saying, tell him thank you. I was ready to leave, and we signed up for this in advance. And the exact wording is correct in the book. I'm going off the top of my head here, but go by the story in the book for the true details. But from what I remember, it was that Maddie was just, saying thank you and wanted him to let himself off the hook and know that it was part of their plan, part of their contracts for him to help Maddie out of her body at that time.
Yeah, it's like Lisa said earlier, it's hard to know it's hard to know when the time is right, and yet when you do know, there's no question in your mind. You had a beautiful story about going for a kitten and the slow eye wink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when it was that time for can you share that was
Mai Tai. Yes, Mai Tai. He's in the second chapter as well, and Mai Tai. 18 years I had him. Didn't make it to 21 like your guys, but I still felt good. He was still kind of in hospice care for at least a year or two prior to that. But when I first got him, I went to a woman's house who had a bunch of kittens that she was trying to get adopted out, and I, in advance, I told myself, the only way I'm going to adopt a kitten today is if I pick one up and they don't try to, how kittens can squirm and latch onto you and you have to pull them off, or they're going all over the place. I want to be able to hold them or her, and that they're calm, and that they give me this nice long slow blink, which in cat language is I love you. And I'll have you know, it was the very last kitten in this room that I picked up. And I picked him up and I held him out in front of me with one hand, and he just gave me this slow blink, and he didn't squirm and he didn't try to do anything at all. And I'm like, okay. And that was actually how he let me know that he was ready. He wanted me to help him pass as well. And that was a surprise. I didn't expect that. We didn't have like this slow blink thing all of our lives together. In 18 years, it wasn't like I would do a slow blink, but it was getting bad, and I didn't want him to suffer. Like none of us want our animals to suffer, and I didn't want to have to make that choice. But he was sitting on my lap, and he was looking into my eyes, and I said, "Buddy, you just let me know when you're ready to go." And then I asked the question I had never said to him up to that point. I hadn't really said it out loud, and I said, "Do you want me to help you? Are you ready now?" And he just looked at me in the eye, and then he gave me this slow, long blink. And I was like, oh, no. And, yeah, but that's how he let me know. And I knew in that moment that was, it was unmistakable, the message that he was giving me, that he wanted me to help him. And so I did. I absolutely did. And I always told him I'd do whatever he wanted me to do. And, he was probably more uncomfortable than what he let me know in his past year or two. So if he was ready, I was going to honor his request.
Oh, yeah. And it's a matter of a quality of life. And I never want to hold on to a pet for me, because I don't want anybody, to be uncomfortable. I want them to have a quality of life too, and if they don't have a quality of life, then I'm being selfish by prolonging it. So I think I have cried more in the vet's office over the years than in funeral homes.
Oh, yeah. I think most animal lovers are like that, the ones that really get emotionally close to their animals.
Oh, yeah. I know that I'm planning a move if I'm lucky, and I have this big bin with the ashes of 14 animals in it. And my son said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm bringing them with me." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I can't leave them here, and It's ridiculous. I couldn't think of sprinkling them here. Now, I know it's ashes. I got that. And I know their spirits are wherever they are. But for some reason, I have everybody's ashes, and I just can't bear to leave them here. They're going to have to go with me. And what was it? I found this wonderful thing that you can take the ashes, just a quarter teaspoon of them, and they will put them into a glass globe for you. So that and I'm just going to tell people I have a collection of glass globes. That's all. and
there you go.
I will feel better. I will feel better than having 13, 14 tins of animal ashes. So I will slowly over time get one globe made for each of them so that I can have them with me that way.
Oh, I love that. I love everybody honoring what works for them with the ashes. I've heard so many different fun stories, or I guess fun's the wrong word to describe it, but I mean so many sacred stories of what they have done with their animals' ashes, and that sounds like a great one.
Well, you kind of, it's funny because I didn't do that with my husband's ashes when he passed away, but there, I don't know. I think I have a greater sense of, his spirit has gone on, and I understand that, and it's fine and wonderful. But for some reason, I still have such a connection to all of the pets that I've had, and a lot of pet owners are like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of finding, finding. It's not letting go because obviously they're gone, except for Smudge and Leo. So that you provide such a wonderful service with your Tandem Healings. I mean, it's just such a magical thing. First of all, to find out what the connection you have with them is, and what its purpose is, and how both you and your animal and your pet can facilitate a healing through what you do. I mean, I think you said you recommended 4 sessions.
Well, I love it for people that are really ready to take a deeper dive with their animal, especially if there are issues that are up. If there's something going on, obviously physically or behaviorally, within both of you that, because I get a lot of calls from rescue animals, obviously, when they've got their past just like the people do, but there's a reason why they came together. So, yeah, I will usually recommend that, but I like people to start with 1 and then see what they think at 1, and then you can upgrade to a package.
It just seems like such a magical way to not only heal yourself, but to learn more about yourself as well as the contract or the connection that you have to your companion.
Mm. Yeah, we can learn a lot through the tandem sessions.
I still think there's a wisdom teaching here of some sort. Don't know why, but I keep hearing the word wisdom, and there is such wonderful spiritual wisdom that we can learn from our pets and our companions, and nobody's going to burn you at the stake for having a cat as a familiar, so anymore, anyhow. So
right.
Those days are gone, thank goodness. But do you work at all with shelters and things like that with animals that have had problems and they're hard to place because of their issues?
I do, yeah. I've donated over 1,000 sessions over the past 20 years there are some out-of-town ones that I work with, but there are several in the Atlanta area that I donate sessions to regularly. And yes, I think in every case, of course, I get the unadoptable animals deemed unadoptable until they heal. I'll get the worst cases, obviously, because they've tried everything else and they know it's something from their past, and they just want to be able to help them feel more comfortable. So I've seen all kinds of different situations with some of these guys, and it's really an honor. They've been some of my best teachers, these sessions that I've donated to shelters, because they have come in to heal more expeditiously, and they've chosen experiences a lot of times that were really unpleasant, just like a lot of people, just like us, right? Where we've chosen to come in and take a deep dive and say, okay, I can handle that. I'll get awake. I'll deal with it. We'll do that. Well, animals are similar to that, and that they're ready to heal a bunch of karma and a bunch of old issues as well. So, yeah, these guys have really been great teachers for me, and I have some of those stories in both books about some of the shelter animals I've worked with.
What do you suppose is, if an animal comes in to you from like a shelter who is very, very traumatized, what kind of thing, so they would have to clear some of their own karma in order to find the person who they're meant to have a contract with, or are they animals that come in with just their own karma that they have to work out, and there isn't necessarily a contract for them?
Oh, there's going to be contracts just because they're at the shelter. They got saved, and so they would have a contract. I don't know if you remember the story with Gigi and Wilson in Level 4, the karma agreement of this dog that, was basically got to the rescue center. So with a lot of magical little, beautiful ways that people saved him along the way. And I believe that he had a contract with each of those people that helped him on his path to even get to the shelter, where he was going to be having all his needs taken care of, and he was never going to have to go through what he went through again. But it took several different steps to get him out of the situation he was, which was very difficult, into, the shelter. And now he's with a home. He's been with a home, I think, for at least over a year now. And Wilson has a beautiful home and manifested that. So I think that he chose to have those types of contracts and experiences with everyone along the way to evolve, just like we do. And we have different relationships that help us move along the path, get our vibration up a little bit higher all the time.
Well, I think that your book and what you have to say, and certainly on your website, gives everybody a better understanding as to the evolutionary process that our pets are on. They're not just here for one level. They're here to communicate and share. I just noticed the time. We've got like a couple minutes left. I want to thank you so much for an amazing 2 hours. I so appreciate your taking your time and energy and sharing it with me and my audience, because there's such wonderful material in your book, and the book, again, is Animal Soul Contracts, Sacred Agreements for Shared Evolution, and you can find her at www.tammybillups.com. Tammy, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Oh, it really has. You're very welcome. I've loved every moment of it. Thank you, Barbara.
Me too. We're going to have to talk about what comes next, because I'll let you, when you're ready to think about it, you give me a call and we'll talk some. Not that
deal.
Not that I know exactly, but I certainly have some very strong feelings, so I'd be happy to share them with you.
Okay. I look forward to that.
Me too. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody, it's that time. So, again, this will be an archive, and if you are listening in archive, please do us a favor of subscribing to the channel so we know you were listening, and hopefully you enjoyed yourself as much as I did. Of course, anytime I can talk about cats and dogs and horses and fairies and elves and gnomes, I'm in goose heaven. So thank you for sharing your time with me tonight. Another show tomorrow night. This is a busy week. There is a show every night. So check us out. They're all very, very different and very, very exciting. Good night now.